CG's gotten so much better. Computers are faster, the tools are better, the rendering's better. It's the budgets and the time frames that have not gotten better. Hey, this is Marc Rienzo. I'm a visual effects artist and supervisor. I've worked on Star Wars, the MCU, Lord of the Rings, and so much more. And today I'm sitting here with Jamie and Tom, Chronicles of Podcast.
Hello world, Wednesday 13 here.
Hey, this is Tom Stay.
Hello everybody, I'm Ronnie Ledrew.
Yes, my friends, my name's John Mahon.
What's going on, everybody? It's Tom.
And it's Jamie. Welcome to the Chronicles of Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, names and names, this week we are back with a very special guest. This week's guest has dedicated his life to bringing you jaw-dropping special effects, from helping Spiderman to swing, helping us imagine people in a galaxy far, far away, and even making us think that Tom Cruise could be a rock star back in the 80s, or even help bring to life a baby Loch Ness monster. I love the water horse. Why does no one else talk about that film? Anyway, everyone, join me. Put your hands together as we bring you the Chronicles of Marc Rienzo.
Beautiful.
That was very generous. Thank you.
We did pronounce your surname correctly, right?
Yes.
I was going to say this. Definitely something we always need to check, and then we always forget. So good. Absolutely nailed it on the head. Marc, before we get into the cruxy, deliciousy part of this, how has your Thursday been?
My Thursday, doing good. I just keeping busy. I'm working on my comic series, so it's kind of daily grind, getting up and getting at it every day. So yeah, I'm enjoying myself quite well here. How about you guys?
Yeah, good. Very chill. I've been off work all day, so I've just been relaxing, doing nothing. It's been nice.
Yeah, I'm currently off work 6 off. Most of it's just been lying around being in pain, but other than that, life's great. But Marc, how we like to start these things, we like to take it right back to the start, back to the days of childhood. Young Master Rienzo, you could say. What did you want to be when you were growing up in your formative years? Has it always been art for you, or was it something completely different, like Formula One driver? I don't know.
Pretty much. I always wanted to be an artist. I was not quite sure what kind of artist until, I suppose, middle school, late elementary school. I always drew, but I didn't realize how to make a career of it. And I was probably at that age, you don't really think about those things quite yet. I always loved comic books. I loved film. And it was when the Batman 89 marketing push came out. Like, I read comic books, but all of a sudden Batman was everywhere. And I was at that perfect age where I was very impressionable and started drawing Batman quite a bit. And I fell in love. That brought me to the local comic book store, where I discovered all my favorite artists that really inspired me. And then I kind of realized, oh, I'm going to draw comic books. So that really kind of set me on that path. Then I got into school visual arts to be a comic book their comic book illustration major. But then I saw Jurassic Park, and that blew my mind. I was always into computers. I was always into film, but this is long before the internet, so I never quite realized that film was a potential career path as an artist until I met a good friend who's still a good friend at School Visual Arts, who was majoring in computer animation, which I never really even heard of at this point. This is in the early 90s. So I did a little research because I knew Jurassic Park was the future. And around this time, I think I was reading or just finished reading like The Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War. And I remember thinking, if you could do dinosaurs, you could do Thanos, you could do all these superheroes. It's just way back when. So I learned about Ringling School of Art and Design, who had a more established computer animation department at the time. And they were based in Sarasota, Florida. And I'm up in Manhattan, freezing my off in at the time, a record year of blizzards, walking through snow with my portfolio. And I made the decision to not just change majors, but switch schools, because Ringling had a lot of students already working that they were the alumni they were, basically advertising with. They were at Pixar and Lucasfilm. So I moved down there and switched schools and just kind of put my nose down and worked away. I knew to be an artist, everyone would say that the cliche of like starving artist, and you get kind of scoffed at by some people. I was very fortunate. My parents were always very supportive in that endeavor. And I knew that some people make it a career as an artist like that. So what do I have to do to be that, whatever it is, 2%, 5%, that small percentage of people that actually make it a career? And the basic answer is you got to be exceptional. You got to put in the work. So that's, and of course, the fact that I was pursuing the most commercial of commercial art there is. I wasn't trying to be a fine artist or anything like that. That certainly helped. So I put my nose down, I worked my butt off, and after 5 years, because it was 1 year at School of Visual Arts, and then at Ringling, they basically make you start over for whatever reasons. That's another story. I got a job at PDI DreamWorks. All the recruiters came and a lot of interviews, and I started my career there, and kind of just from that point on, it was a big blur because I worked from one thing to the next and was just loving every bit of it. So
Wow.
that's the origin story.
If you want to curse, Mark, you're more than welcome to do so. By the way, you are in safe hands here. We're all good. Okay.
Well, I forgot to ask, so
it's all good.
But I love that story though, because you basically fell in love with this idea of watching these dinosaurs and went, you know what? I'm going to take a gamble. I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to follow this passion, and it's safe to say it's paid off for you. So that's amazing. That's inspirational. Like follow your dreams.
Thank you. Well, I wouldn't say it as much as a gamble because I was too young to know better that I was taking such a gamble. I was very pursuing comic books, so in hindsight, like I wasn't thinking that way. I was purely thinking like how I said what my parents were supporting was like do what you love and never work a day in your life. That whole mantra, which I believe very passionately. Didn't see it much as a gamble. It's just I was just kind of blindly following my passion, and it did. And it was the fear of failure. It was like I'm not going back to like. I remember my father said, like, you want to go to art school, you better make it. Like the alternative was I worked landscaping with him growing up. So I did not want to go back to that.
No, that's fair. Also, could you have two better inspirations for a career? Batman and Jurassic Park. Like fucking yes. Sure. Absolutely amazing.
Well, the funny side of it is my friend Josh Cortez, who I met at School of Visual Arts, we hit it off because I was a diehard Star Wars fan. So this is where I say, in hindsight, looking back, I didn't see film as a career path. He was an artist. He loved Star Wars and he wanted to work in film. It just never occurred to me, out of all my like teachers and mentors and stuff, no one pointed out that a film as an artist, film path is a real career. Even like guidance counselors in high school, it was just never, it was so far out there that I never thought of it as a possibility. Today, obviously we have the internet and so much more communication. But yeah, my buddy Josh changed my life in that sense. So Star Wars was a lifelong dream, and I had spoken to ILM as I was getting out of school, and I was offered to work on they were doing like, I think it was Frankenstein, like an animated Frankenstein film at the time. And glad I didn't do it because the film eventually got shelved, but I thought it could have been a step in the door to potentially get on this. At the time, Phantom Menace was like happening. It wasn't out yet. So I thought I could get my foot in the door there. But I went to PDI DreamWorks, and then I eventually made it to ILM, so it all worked out.
Amazing. It's funny you say that, like you don't realize you could do this as a job. Like you watch a film, you see the hundreds of names in the credits, but still nothing in your head goes, that's a job. I could do that if I tried. If I put my mind to it, I could probably do that one day. It just never clicks in your brain, does it?
Right. Because I suppose back then, before computer graphics, artists were storyboard artists, like were concept artists. And that wasn't really what I was. I didn't have much exposure to that.
Yeah.
So that's probably why.
So I went to the fountain of all knowledge that is, of course, IMDb. According to that, your first project was Forces of Nature with Sandra Bullock and Ben Affleck. Is that right? Is that the first thing you worked on, or is that so
that
far
was
off?
the first. That was the first film I worked on. Yeah, total landmark film. Like people love it. It's a landmark. I'm just kidding. No, that was. Yeah, no, that was the first project I worked on. It's a great learning experience. That was at again PDI DreamWorks. I was in their commercial and film effects division. And at the time, I remember working on that, and I'm fresh out of school, and just seeing the green screens, blue screens, coming on, being scanned and brought online. I remember nerding out so much, being so excited about it. It was like the coolest thing ever. Like today, blue screens are just like you can't turn around and not see that. But this was a romantic comedy in the late '90s, and they shot blue screens. It was like, this is awesome. We're like doing amazing work, cutting edge stuff here. This is so cool.
Are you a blue screen guy or a green screen guy?
Well, I mean, blue screen, but obviously it depends on what someone's wearing. I'm not gonna, that's
Well, yeah. Where's his body gone?
That's the number one thing. There was a big push by people to just like green screen is better, which is completely not true. Obviously, it depends on the content, but if the content is not an issue, I definitely prefer blue, just for skin tone, the grain levels, and there's a variety of technical reasons. Either work. The tools have gotten so much better. It's really not much of a debate anymore. But years back, when the computers were so much slower, it could be a big factor.
Did you have like any early mentors or influences who like shaped your approach to storytelling at VFX?
That's a good question. You mean like I absolutely had mentors in the visual effects field, for sure. There's a lot of people. My first job, I was staff at PDI, and then I eventually went freelance because some of my mentors were leaving. And then after that, I stayed freelance because I loved meeting so many different people and learning how this company does it and how this company does it. And then I would meet so many different people, different companies. It was just so eye-opening, and I learned so much. The downside of that was you start to learn the wrong way. You see we're like, well, over here we did this. Why don't we do that? And this company was so set in their ways they wouldn't change. But it was lots of mentors in the visual effects field. But outside of that, in terms of inspiration, like I'm a diehard. I love old Spielberg, the Amblin days. Like that's some of the most inspiring stuff for me that I still look back at today, and I wish cinema reflected more of that.
I know we're jumping all about a little bit here, but obviously saying you're freelance. Obviously, when you work for a studio, they're working on that film. When it comes to being freelance, how do you get these roles? And do you have to audition? Are they reaching out to you? Like, how does that work?
It's word of mouth. The industry is enormous today, but when I started, it was very small. So since I worked so hard to get that first job, that was staff. So then when I left, it was a matter of like somebody that I was working with had gone to this other company. It was Mannix VFX. They had just finished doing the first Matrix film. So I went there, he hired me there. And then after there, I went to Digital Domain, who also gave me an offer out of school, which I was like, not sure I made the right choice. I should have gone there, maybe not, whatever. But the point was I stayed in touch with them, and I reached out, and they had an opening, and they brought me in. So from there, then that was all that was within a matter of 2-3 years. So now I've been at 3 companies, and I treated every job as like how do I say it? It was a stepping stone, a learning experience to further build my demo reel. Especially when I decided to go freelance, because at the time, someone in visual effects back then, if you'd been working 5 years, you were like a veteran. Oh my God, this guy's done so much. So I wanted to have that level of resume and demo reel and experience. So I was always trying to build my reel, build my resume, make as many connections as I could. And there was such a demand in the industry. So then eventually when I did go down to LA, I started up in Northern California. Then the phones don't stop ringing if you're a big freelancer with experience. So there wasn't any auditioning. It was mostly word of mouth. Like when a supervisor says, I want him. And sometimes obviously sometimes demo reel came into play, like they want to see your reel. But I personally loved keeping a current demo reel, because to me it was just like, for years and years and years I built a portfolio to get into school, and then when I was in school I was building a portfolio to get the first job. So then when I got the first job, I'm like, now I'm working on professional stuff. This stuff is cool. I want to update my reel. Like, get rid of all this old school stuff. This stuff is embarrassing. So for years, I was very passionate about keeping my portfolio going. So when someone reached out, I had my stuff ready to show.
Yeah. Awesome. But like being a freelancer, obviously, when you approach projects, do you get much say in like how things should be done, or is it this is what I want and this is how I want it, do it?
Oh no, well, to a certain extent, like especially as you get more and more experience. Once I started supervising, then you certainly get a little bit, you get more say in whatever area. But when I for I don't even know how long that was, 10 years maybe, I never even wanted to supervise. I was like enjoying doing the work. And it, some supervisors were more open than others. The best ones are the ones that like trust you, and like that's where you get the most opportunity. And like as long as you're getting it done and making them look good, they're generally very happy. So as I got more and more experience, yeah, I had a lot more say on how things were done. But there's so many factors to that when it comes to schedule, budget, and the client's wants. And then the higher you get, the more you're dealing with studio executives and all of that other stuff too that plays a factor. So yeah, it's not a simple answer, but yes and no. Yeah. You control what you can control, and you focus on what you can, and that's a big part of the whole like parlor trick of visual effects. I would say it's like, we have this much time. This is how much this is what we have to do. Let's focus on the most bang for your buck. What's the most critical thing? Because especially today, you get less and less time to do this stuff. Computers have gotten much faster, but it's always a challenge of, we got to do X, Y, and Z in this amount of time, and we have this many people, and there's always challenges and limitations regardless of the technology.
So generally, how does it work in that sense of like Tom was just saying there, I want you to do this and do this. Are you given like a scene to work on? Is it a certain character you work on? Like how or is it just different everywhere?
Well, that's a good question. It depends on the project and the position, but as an artist, you're generally in a team that's working on a certain sequence that a vendor company, like a Digital Domain, an ILM, the Sony ImageWorks will bid on certain sequences. Back in the day, they may or may not have done the entire film, but today it's usually broken up across a lot of different vendors. So if you're a vendor, you're an artist, you have your sequences that are in in that facility, and then the supervisor will then break down how they want to like task it out across their team. So generally there's like different teams working on different sequences, and then artists get different shots within that sequence. When I work on the studio side, you're the one that's interfacing with the actual production, the director, the executives. Back in the day, the directors used to visit the vendors. I haven't seen that happen in a long time. I'm not saying it never happens, but when you're working on the studio side, you're then supervising the vendor's work that comes in. So you're interfacing with the supervisor at the vendor, giving notes, reviewing with the director, trying to achieve their vision the best that you can. So it definitely varies, but it's usually broken up based on not just bids and money, but which company is the best for this particular task. So a lot of like heavy character animation stuff, typically like, if you got like a Hulk or a Thanos, there's certain companies you want to use for that. The obvious ones, Industrial Light and Magic, Weta Digital, that are, excellent at that. Or then if it's like effects and destruction, obviously those companies do that as well. They do everything. But there are companies that sometimes have a certain focus on different types of visual effects, because visual effects is such a big umbrella, from character animation to effects, map painting, set extensions, cleanup. There's so many different levels of complexity and types of different things that fall under that umbrella.
It's mad. This is why I love talking to people like yourself, because us as consumers who just go, "Oh, cool, the thing go boom," like we don't think more into it, but you don't realize that people are bidding just to animate this tiny part of it. That's madness. That's blown my mind a little bit. I didn't realize it was like that. I just thought every film has a team,
That's kind of amazing to hear, because I've been so steeped and deep in it that it's hard for me to actually look at it that way, because to me it's second nature.
But
that's what blows my mind, was when you hear people talk about like CG's gotten so bad, and I understand why they say it, but in fact CG's gotten so much better. Computers are faster, the tools are better, the rendering's better. It's the budgets and the time frames that have not gotten better. And the fact that people know we can do anything, then you have certain people that promise we can do anything, but it does take time. Probably heard the saying, you can't have nine women can't have a baby in 1 month. It doesn't work that way.
I've never heard that. That's crazy. That's good analogy, though.
So that you understand that you still need time. You can't just slice it up in every case. Some cases you can, but
yes,
good work takes time. But also, when you have a team of people that have been working together consistently, you know each other, like strengths and weaknesses. The supervisor knows who's good at what. You can it's like basketball. I'm a basketball guy, so I might make a few basketball analogies. When you have a team that's been playing together for years, they know each other. They know how to get the ball in the basket. But when you can throw the best players together, and they might not play at their peak. So today, a lot of companies, while I did decide to go freelance for my own reasons early on, when I went back to the digital domain over and over and over again, there was mostly the same people there. I can't speak to it today. I know a lot of guys are still there, but for the most part, a lot of companies don't have as big of a core staff group because of the overhead and the uncertainty and the low profit margins and a variety of reasons. But it's really been, the industry's really gone down a path of freelancing, basically. Like almost that people hire up, and it's not the same thing as versus having a team that knows each other well, works together well. If you want to do the best work you can, but
Yeah. That's what, like I said, when you know each other, you work together well, you bounce off each other. You just got to give someone a look and you go, I know what he means. But if you don't know each other, you're all doing your own thing. Yeah, it's gonna be harder to get the results you want, isn't it?
yeah. So I tend to try to work mostly as much as I can with people I know, just for that very reason, because you can trust someone's going to get stuff done, especially with ever since the work from home thing started. There's certain people that they're not cut out for all the roadblocks and technical hiccups that come your way. That it doesn't extend the deadline. You got to figure it out. And complaining about it doesn't fix it.
I suppose in that way, like, you're not part of a team. If you're not all together in the same room, you can't be like, Dave, I am stuck, mate. What can I do? Like, you can't. You're stuck at home on your own. You can't do that.
1,000%. That sitting next to really smart people at all those different companies that I worked at is such a superpower. Well, that's not the right word. Is such a plus to be able to not be able to get held up. Like, hey, how do you do this? It goes a long way.
But I was like looking at all the sort of projects you've worked on, and you've worked on a lot of projects that have already got some established history, like The Force Awakens, like I mentioned with Star Wars earlier. You did the third Pirates movie. When you're doing projects like that, do you have to do that sort of bit of extra research to make sure you're keeping that pre-established tone? That's all, if that makes sense.
The tone, I mean, well, that was the thing is I'm a passionate film goer, so by the time I worked on my first Star Wars, I mean, there was no research that needed to be done.
Probably not the best example of Star Wars, no.
No, I mean, on any of them, really. Like, I see all these movies, so for the most part, maybe not as much today, but I love film. I lived and breathed it, so I was most of the time moving around working on stuff I wanted to see more than anything else. That was the initial driving factor. When I left my staff job at PDI, I remember my back then my parents had come out and visited, and it was a beautiful company, very nice people, great, they took care of everybody, bagels and breakfast, and it was a great cushy job. My dad could not believe when I said I was leaving and going freelance, and borderline pulled me over and yelled at me, and I was like, I know what I'm doing. I got this.
I suppose, with freelance though, I suppose you've got that ability to turn around and just work on stuff you're passionate about, you care about. Like, if someone offers you another Sandra Bullock, Ben Affleck love movie, you might be like, yeah, it's not for me, mate. But you've got that ability to turn around and say, nah, I'd rather do Star Wars instead of being stuck to that studio.
Yeah, so that's exactly what happened there is we were bidding on the first X-Men film, and I was part of a small team there that was doing a test for the film. I was the compositor it was the liquid light, they called it. There was that whole, I don't remember exactly what it's called in the film, but at the end of the film, there's that big, I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah. I can't remember what they called it, but yeah.
The way it was described to us was liquid light. So we did a test and it went over very well. And then the other thing that came up, the owner of the company knew that I read comic books and was a fan. And he said, they want us to bid on this rogue effect. And my eyes were super wide. I was all excited. I'm like, oh, yeah. And he's like, but, in the comic books, he literally had, and he's like, it's just a bunch of squiggly lines. They don't know how to visualize this. Do you have any ideas? I was like, yes. So I did a bunch of artwork. I took some photos of myself and I put these veins coming up my neck. And so the whole touching of the skin thing with the veins, those were based on my concepts. So we were awarded the work. But then the politics kicked in. I mean, people were popping champagne bottles, and I was so excited. I'm going to work on X-Men, And then suddenly the work was with 2-3 days. Actually, we didn't get it. They had spoken too soon, and the work was going to Digital Domain, which was the company I told you I didn't go to. So I was super bummed. And then like I said, a few of the people that I considered strong mentors started leaving the company. So that's when I left. And I went to Mannix. And then from there, that's when I called up Digital Domain again. And I was going to work on X-Men. So I was super excited. I'm on my way. I'm moving down LA. And then they baited and switched me. I'm not working on X-Men. I'm going to work on The Grinch. And I'm like, you're kidding me. But I'm fairly new to the industry. I'm like, I'm going to just bite my tongue. I'm not going to say anything. But it all worked out because my first stint at Digital Domain, I look back at that with such high regard. I learned so much. I met so many great people. And The Grinch turned out to be a film that people watch every year. And I remember my supervisor said to me at the time, like, people are going to watch this every Christmas. It's gonna be a long-lasting film. And I remember thinking, I didn't see it at the time. I loved Jim Carrey, but it seemed really silly at the time. But I was so into the work. I learned so much, and it was a great experience. So from there, then I got myself on Spiderman. So I was finally going to check that comic book movie box.
And on your way you went. But do you like the practical effects blended with the VFX, or do you lean towards fully digital solutions more?
Oh, well, so practical effects is special effects, visual effects is computer graphics. I while I love practical effects, they were already starting to disappear as I started.
Okay.
So I loved like some of the old Digital Domain, Titanic, Apollo 13, and Dante's Peak, some of the miniature work they had done, because I think that work is fantastic. When you mix digital with practical, like that, to me, that's the best, that can be the best of both worlds. That stuff was already starting to disappear. I did get to work with some miniatures down at Weta Digital on Lord of the Rings Two Towers, and then I heavily pushed for it while working. I was compositing supervisor on 2012. So, as a fan of some of like the big disaster movies of the times past, I at the time they were like, "No, we're not doing that. We're doing it digital." I'm like, some of the stuff will look better if you shoot some miniatures. So I was able to convince them to do some of it that way. Not much. I mean, not much, but some elements that we were able to shoot and use. It went a long way, but for the most part, I know there's a little bit of a resurgence, but I think a lot of it's marketing, mostly marketing today. Like they'll shoot more locations and stuff, but most of it's marketing because of there's certainly a certain bad taste in some people's mouth when it comes to CG. The truth of the matter is people don't like bad CG. And I'll tell you what, you know who hates bad CG even more? The CG artists. We can do anything. That is true, but it does take time and it does take money. That's as simple as that. So no one hates it more when the stuff is rushed out than to visual effects artists.
I think it's amazing when you find out there's digital effects on a film you didn't even realize was there. Like I was looking at your reel for Rock of Ages, and I was like, why is there visual effects in this film? It's all the Sunset Strip and whatnot. And then I was watching it, I was like, I had no idea. I just thought it was just filmed on a road.
Different layers?
Yeah, I was just like, I had no idea. You just don't think of it, do you? It's mad.
That's awesome to hear because that has always been my mentality, and I don't think that's as much of the thought process by most today. To me, when I got in, I wanted to be a compositor. The idea is I don't care how crazy your scene is, what crazy characters or what's happening. Your work is supposed to be invisible. It's supposed to look like you had a camera on the day and you recorded this, period, full stop. So that means every little detail needs to be believable that it was caught on camera. There were pretty quickly, I saw people weren't respecting that rule. They were pushing stuff because you can move the camera in crazy ways that you can't a live action camera. You can have colors that don't make that are overly saturated or ridiculous. And to me, you break those rules unless it is done in a very strict creative art directed palette, like say the film 300, which I love and I think it looks beautiful. But if you have a straightforward film like Rock of Ages, but you decide to take all these creative liberties with your visual effects, which they did not do, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb and look fake. So I would always try to make certain that we follow the rules of what your camera was that you used on set in regards to how we do the visual effects. So if you look at Spider-Man, obviously it's impossible to have a cameraman swinging along the city with him. Hasn't that even though they tried, it was called I think they called it the Spider Cam. They hooked it up on a crane and dropped it. So if you saw my reel, there's that big last swing shot from the first film. There's a section of that, a small section of that the plate being the background is real. And then it's hooked up and connected to a big CG environment. Obviously, Spider-Man's digital.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So, right.
No, I love it. But you're saying then, like, you've got to match this to the environments and the sets. Like, so do you, I suppose more in a supervisor role, do you spend much time on sets, or is all your work like in an office somewhere?
Yeah. So not initially, but as I moved up and started supervising, I was on set more and more. Yep.
That's awesome.
But there's always somebody on set, even if you're not there, that's recording all the data, like camera height, camera lens, focal, everything is recorded on the day and photographed, and HDRs are taken so that you can recreate that world, that scene, that lighting, everything digital. But the realism problem comes in pretty quickly when they want to change it, right? So if this was here, this would, I mean, the more you deviate from reality, the more likely is not going to hold up. So it's a fine balance between pushing the artistic versus the technical of what actually was. And obviously, if you're shooting, when you're shooting, not if, you don't have, say, there's two digital characters. You have to make an effort to have, like you've seen some, I'm sure you've seen lots of behind the scenes stuff. You'll have stand-in characters and reference and stuff. So eye lines, so many different things come into play. And like, well, if my real person is here and the digital person's here, there'd be a shadow and how the light, all these little, so many little details that add up to whether, to create that illusion of reality.
Again, this is why I say I love talking to people like yourself, because it's amazing. The level of respect you have for your line of work, because as you say, you shouldn't even know you're doing it because it just blend and everything should be natural. And I think it's fucking amazing. I really do. Blows my tiny mind. What can I say? But I always get intrigued with things like this with creative types. A while back, we spoke to a storyboard artist named Darren Denninger, and we were talking about like spending hours working on this thing, making it look amazing, and then it gets cut. Has that happened to you? Like, anything that stands out where you're like, oh, this looks so good, and it's gone?
Oh, all the time. Happens all the time. Yeah. You work on something, the whole sequence is cut, the shot's cut. That happens all the time, especially working at Marvel. I mean, they're changing stuff all the time, trying to make the best film everyone's trying to make the best film they can, but they are a bit notorious for changes up to the last minute. That's for sure. But I don't know. It was my first film, that I always almost say Force Awakens, Forces of Nature. There was just, it's just a nothing throwaway shot and it got cut. And I remember just kind of being a little heartbroken of all the work that went into it. But after that, you realize like that's the way the ball bounces. It's all right. Like I still had it for my demo reel in that particular case, but sometimes you don't get to finish it, and it's just part of the part for the course. Still get paid.
That's the important bit.
Are there any like projects that you've worked on that have really pushed you out of your comfort zone at all? Like being part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example.
Pushed my comfort zone. I suppose, yeah, but for different reasons. I always thrive. I was not happy if I wasn't learning, so I was always throwing myself out of my comfort zone intentionally.
Love
Like,
that.
when I went on that first Spider-Man film, I had established myself as a visual effects compositor, but I had started as a generalist, meaning I did a little bit of everything, but I had a focus in compositing. So when I went to ImageWorks, they had their compositors lighting and compositing. I felt confident I could do it, but it just wasn't my passion. So but honestly, I'd gotten a little annoyed because people would, sometimes you hear just the compositor, or early on in my career, like you might not be in certain conversations because this was not compositing. So when I had the opportunity to light and comp my own shots, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, just because it was like, it was kind of another resume line, and also just to be able to show I can do more than compositing. Because I think being a compositor, you have to talk to the lighters, you have to talk to the other departments. So if you don't have experience in the other departments or other areas, how are you gonna you can do better work when you have to be able to communicate with those people. Like, I need this, and this, or like it would be best if I got this, if you can, in the time frame, that sort of thing. So I really made it a point to have my knowledge base beyond just compositing. So hope that answers your question. My comfort zone was always to not be in my comfort zone. I didn't want to just do what I did. I always wanted to be in a like doing something different position. For sure.
Do you have a preference on what sort of work you like to do? Is it compositing, or is it something else?
These days I do focus more on supervising, because I still love compositing, and I do like to bounce back and forth. I never wanted to be the supervisor that never worked on the box anymore. I wanted to stay current on the tools and still know how to do the actual work itself, because for that exact reason, so I can talk to the artists themselves that are doing the work, and I need to be fluent in the tools they're using to be able to make suggestions on how to accomplish something. Like, hey, you can use this for that, or this. I know exactly what's happening here. Just here, try this, and it'll work. Yeah. So I do bounce back and forth between the two.
How did you get into supervising? Was it something you aimed for, you wanted to do, or was it just an opportunity you were given one day?
It was a slow progression. I never at first I never was even thinking about it. The first type of leadership role I got, I had just come back to Digital Domain. I was just finished up on Lord of the Rings 2 Towers at Weta Digital. Came back to Digital Domain. I was working on Triple X, the first Vin Diesel film. And my supervisor asked me to take a look at some green screen shots. And because he had known me from Grinch, where we did a lot of blue screen work. So he said, take a look at these. Some of these are problematic. And I zipped through them, and he came back and he just said, you're now the lead artist on, I forget if it was green screens or whatever, on this section of work. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I didn't see that coming. That was amazing. So that was fun. And after, I still wasn't thinking supervising, but I forget exactly the progression of things. But while I loved all my time in Digital Domain, I was always learning there, and there's some other studios that I did go to where you get frustrated with your supervisor. So it's became in some cases, it became a matter of like, I don't want to be the passenger in this car. I want to drive it because I don't like the direction we're going, to put it simply. So then I started keeping my ears open for supervising positions, and slowly I started as a compositing supervisor, and then from there, pretty quickly, there was more and more opportunity from sequence supervising to visual effects supervising. And once you step foot in the supervising arena with those different levels, as I mentioned, then the on-set stuff just came naturally because those are the people that are usually asked to go.
Amazing. It's really awesome. You're saying there, like, supervising, like, to get your hands in, so you learn, what you're doing with these tools. You've been doing this work for over 20 years now. Like, how has the role changed in like advances in technology in those years?
That's a good question. I haven't worked at a big vendor in quite a while. I've worked on the studio side mostly in recent years, or completely freelance. How has it changed? The biggest thing that I could say is just that while I think I already said it, just while the tools and technology have gotten exponentially better, the time frames have not. So it's become more and more of a challenge of getting it done as efficiently and quickly as possible. And you're always trying to balance, like I said, my personal like ambition is to make it look invisible to the viewer. That's the most rewarding to me, is when it looks real. But that's not always the mandate from the director or the supervisor that you're working for, or whatever the case may be. It's so your number one priority is always making whoever's approving the work the priority, but at the same time trying to, like, you got to make them happy, number one, but at the same time I'm most happy and I'm most rewarded when I'm happy with the work. So I'll always petition and try to gently nudge it in the direction that I want it to go. But if that's not what they want, you can only make suggestions so many times. But sometimes regardless, the schedule doesn't allow for it, or the budget doesn't allow for it. It's a big balancing act of focusing on the most important things, considering your time frame and the tools and team that you have at your disposal.
Does working in the industry, because you said you're a massive movie buff, like you love films, you consume them and everything about them. So when you go to watch movies yourself now, knowing how they work, does it sort of ruin it for you now when you go watch movies, say today?
Yes and no. I don't. Where years and years ago I would see a film just because it had visual effects. That's been a long time, like since that was the appeal. Now, I mean, for years, many years now, like the story's got to be good. I don't care how good the visual effects are. I'm bored out of my mind if that's no desire to sit there and just watch a big visual effects reel. The story's got to be engaging and when that happens, I really don't care about the quality. I take that back. That's wrong. As long as the visual effects are a consistent level, if everything's 85%, 80%, 90%, and the story is great, I'm probably having a really good time. If the visual effects are amazing, awful, cringing, and all over the place, if the film's really good, for the most part, like I'm watching it for the story and the entertainment, but it will take me out of it when stuff bounces around. I mean, unfortunately, I see a lot of that. There's a lot of like really, really good work, really, really cringe work. So I'd rather just have everything at a baseline of a little bit lower, 80, 85%, and then all over the place. This way you're like, this is what it looks like. You're not thinking about that. You're thinking about the characters and the story. And some companies that I've worked at, that's something I learned early on, and I always try to focus on while I'm supervising is get everything up to a certain level. And there's a term in the visual effects industry that I'm sure is outside of it. CBB could be better. So don't 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 work on something. You have 8 months to do something. Don't work on one sequence for 6 months and then the other 4 sequences for the remaining time. Bring everything up to the same level and bring it all up together instead of burning all your time on making one thing amazing and then neglecting certain other things. There's places I've worked at that don't seem to still get that, but there's other companies that are amazing at it. That's how I like to work.
It's interesting you say that because, like, some people do. They moan and complain about the quality of a film just because the CGI isn't where they want it. Like, best example I can think of recently was the Flash movie they made, and everyone was moaning about things, and I was like, I got to see Nicolas Cage as Superman finally. I don't care if it didn't look like Nicolas Cage completely. I got to see Nicolas Cage as Superman. Like, just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. I do wish that. See, the thing is there have been movies with bad visual effects that have made an excessive amount of money. So that doesn't help the visual effects industry,
No.
at least for my passion of wanting everything to look amazing. Like, if they're still making tons and tons of money, which they're not anymore, and at least in recent years, there hasn't, not everything is making $1 billion. I always want everything to look amazing and the best that it can be. So that's why I say I'll balance everything out. But there are films that I think are really good films that the visual effects weren't good at times, that I'm taken out of it to the point where I don't love that movie. So I think it is a key part of it, although invisible, like you said. If it doesn't look good, it takes you out of it, takes you out of the story. But when it's all in sync and working together, that's a beautiful thing. Those are the movies you watch over and over again. And that is the thing about, sorry, a little tangent here, but to me, that's the beauty of the original Star Wars trilogy. We're not talking visual effects here, but everything was groundbreaking, pretty much. Like, every department was off the charts, from cinematography, characters design, script, mythology, the costumes, the editing, the music. I mean, it was, you take one of those things out, it's not that, like, you've seen the thing, I'm sure you've seen, like, the YouTube videos where people take the music out of Star Wars.
Yes.
It loses quite a bit, right? And then the editing in that film is like, every shot has a purpose. It's moving, like, there's a reason for it. There's not just all these giant throwaway shots that are just gratuitous camera moves. And like today, like, that's a lot of the criticism to CG. Just because you can do anything doesn't mean you should. Those original Star Wars films, they're very economical. They're telling a giant, massive story with, even at the time, a pretty low budget and incredibly limited technology. And to be able to pull off what they did is amazing. And yeah, how did I not mention the special effects of all the breakthroughs that they did with motion control camera and all that? There's, like, everything, every moment of those things is just off the charts. And it all comes together to make something greater than all the parts. So today's films, there's definitely some movies that have achieved that, but it seems to not be as common as it was in recent years.
And I 100% agree. Those first three movies, they're just something so special about them. Not even just because it's a great story and everything like that. Like, just the way they were made, like, everything about it is just incredible. Which is why I really enjoyed The Force Awakens that you got to work on, because it feels like he went back to a lot of that. Obviously, he used more modern technology, of course he did, but it feels like he went back to a lot of that, like the practical side of it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, using practicals where it makes sense, using digital where it makes sense, and back to the original trilogy. you can watch that and just focus on the sound design. You can watch it just on the costumes or the lighting or the editing. Like every single aspect of that film is hitting on all cylinders.
Like, don't get me wrong, I do love the prequels, but I'm pretty certain they just filmed it in a green room, from what I could tell from looking at behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, I got a love-hate relationship with them. But
I think we all do, don't worry.
the stories hold up in terms of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They're rewatchable because of that. I'm not a Last Jedi fan, and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, to be fair. I think I liked it when I first watched it, because I was like, oh my God, it's Star Wars. And then when I rewatched it, I went, what the fuck is that? Like, what?
Yeah, I was in denial.
Yeah, we all were. But looking back at your career, obviously you've worked on so many amazing projects. Is there a particular project or projects that stand out to you, like, that was a good day at work?
I get this question a lot because there's some movies that I love the finished product, and then there's some movies that just the process was the most enjoyable part of it. So like, well, I like the film Grinch. It's fun and it's great to every year. There's people watching and talking about it because it's Christmas and stuff. The actual process of working on that, I'll never forget. That was outstanding. I loved every day. I couldn't wait to go into work. I used to jokingly say, "Thank God it's Monday," even though we were working long hours and a lot of 6-day weeks. So that was a great experience. And there's plenty of other films that I really enjoyed as well working on. But at the end of the day, I'm the film that I'm probably most like, that I look at and I'm just super proud to have been a part of, was Rogue One, which it's just a solid Star Wars film. Everyone loves it. The visual effects are solid. So it's like, I'm glad I got to touch on that one.
Oh, a perfect movie, Rogue One. Perfect movie. Oh, loved that film.
I love it. But for me, it's funny because I think it has what Force Awakens was missing, and Force Awakens has what Rogue One was missing. I love the adventure spirit of Star Wars, that, like the original trilogy has, and I think Force Awakens captured. Rogue One, I love the movie. It's very rewatchable. It looks great. It just, for me, it was missing the fun. It's hard. It's hard for me even to remember some of the characters' names. Where Force Awakens had a lot of that like charisma and the characters, and it didn't necessarily go anywhere where we thought it was going to go. But Rogue One, it's kind of like, in my mind, kind of a, that was good, but it's missing that like Star Wars excitement for me.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think just seeing Darth Vader completely destroy people with a lightsaber at the end just made it perfect. What more could I ask for?
Yeah. I can tell you a story about that. I got signed a few shots in that sequence, and I was so excited. I was so excited that I just tore into those shots. And I'm an artist. I'm not a lead. I'm not a supervisor. Nothing. So I got the shot, and I knocked out one so fast. Like I was so into it. Like I just built the lightsaber from scratch by hand. Like they had a prop, but you had to replace it. So I just built my own. I mean, I know what a lightsaber looks like, but of course, I still like the reference and stuff. And I submitted it to dailies, and I don't remember the exact words, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it was kind of, it was a shock that it was there, and John Knoll was surprised to see it, and I got pulled aside. The lead, like they were building a whole system to use to do the lightsabers and stuff, and I just attacked it straight. I don't even think it's supposed to start on the shot yet, so it was fun because it was like, it looks great, but we have to use this whole system, so that, which was fine. It was cool. It all worked out, but I was telling you how excited I was working on Vader shot.
I still have it for my reel. It's fine.
And I'm going to bring it. I imagine you've been asked this loads of times with in relation to AI. Obviously, AI and real-time rendering is evolving so quickly. Now, where do you see the future of VFX going forward?
Oh, that's a big question. Obviously, it's changing everything, and it will be used as soon as they can to replace as many of us as possible. It's not going away. So I refuse to rail against it. Instead, I'm learning it because it is a tool. I think it's still really it's progressing incredibly fast. However, I there are insane limitations to it in terms of, especially what we deal with in visual effects, is specificity and being able to address whatever creative notes come our way. Like it's not, we don't create a scene, press render, and it's done. There's such a balance of technical and artistry to address whatever the vision is from the director of whatever the wants and needs are. AI certainly doesn't have that flexibility, not even close. I've seen a lot of cool stuff, but at the same time, I don't see it working in that world just yet. When it will work, which I know some companies are working on, is when it's built more into the tools that we use. This way, it it will eliminate a lot of tedious manual work that doesn't require much technical skill or artistry. So I welcome that because nobody likes doing that type of work. But then at the same time, when the two are kind of working together, I think it will allow for doing work a lot faster and a lot better. I think right now it's kind of very separate from visual effects. There are some companies, and I have some friends that are working on at companies that are trying to bridge the two. It hasn't hit in a big way yet. So like it might be right now for commercials or say title sequences. Sure, it can do a lot of that stuff and one-offs and things like that. And I think a lot of reshoots will benefit from it because you know what the surrounding stuff looks like. And that all makes sense. But in terms of doing an entire thing that way, I think there's a lot of glue that has to happen yet between the existing tools and the new tools.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't replace, and I hope it works hand in hand with you instead. That's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, it's going to replace a lot. There's no doubt. But as a compositor, that is like a lot of AI has all sorts of weirdness and things that happen, or you might get the shot beautiful. Like I was saying, specificity that everything might be great except for that one thing, or in AI's case, those 6 little things. The more you look close, the compositor is going to be the one to fix it. So
yeah,
if you're current in AI and you're like a compositor like myself, you're the guy that they're going to want to be able to fix that stuff. So
like Tom said, I just hope it's used as an assistant that helps, not replaces, because you're gonna know nothing beats having that eye attention of a human being at the end of the day. But
I think like one area where it will benefit visual effects greatly is, and it already is, I know a company that's actively pushing this area, is face replacements and that kind of performance work, because you've seen a lot of face replacements that you wouldn't believe how much money went into it and it still didn't look good. But that is one, because there's so many little nuances of a human animation and shading of the skin and pores and hairs and so many. It doesn't take much for you to notice when something's artificial, because that's what we talk to each other every day. So when something's off or not right, it's a dead giveaway. So that's something AI is really good at, and that sort of stuff I think will benefit greatly and in a positive way for film, to be able to like it, whether you approve on it conceptually or not, but it's already, people have tried to bring back younger versions of actors and stuff. And sometimes it's gratuitous and sometimes it makes total sense. But
Rogue One.
yeah, so that type of work in theory could look a lot better. And not that the Rogue One work doesn't look good. I'm not saying that.
No,
But it'd be a lot easier and cheaper, that sort of thing, and more successful when you have these kind of tools. But the odd thing is that I've noticed, I haven't really seen anybody else talking about this. Being in visual effects, part of my love of compositing was also, I see it as two different things. So build a foundation here. Image processing and compositing. Compositing uses image processing tools. It's just, you have basically a suite of image processing tools. But I always approached it as learning and everything I could about image processing, what I can do as an artist to manipulate pixels, what this filter does, what this tool does, and how to combine the things in a certain logical way. And that's what compositing is you have a flow graph of those and it's different steps. So it's very systematic and programmatic in nature. So as long as if I knew all the image processing tools, it made me be able to do the art that without having to. I knew exactly what I needed, how to do what I wanted to do. So if I understood the tools, the problem, not problem, but the odd thing that's happening now, all those image processing tools were always originating, the push of technology originated in the visual effects companies. A lot of the software that I used early on was proprietary. Like Digital Domain's Nuke is the industry standard now for visual effects compositing for many, many years now. But when it first started, it was proprietary. You can only use it in Digital Domain. And then Sony ImageWorks had their own, PDI had their own, ILM had their own. So those tools being developed in-house, you had a lot of feedback between the artists and the people writing the software. AI is not originating in the visual effects companies, and visual effects companies don't have as much of a budget or team that is developing software anymore. So it's when I dabble in the AI stuff, I'm like, oh, this is amazing, this is really cool. Well, why don't you have this? Like, this is just, it makes no sense. Like, why would you do it this way? It's just because you got a lot of programmers, really, really, really smart people making these tools, but they don't work in the visual effects industry. So some things might be, I've seen a lot of gaping holes of like, this is not how you do this type of work, or you need certain levels of control or whatever it is, file formats and stuff like that.
It's almost as like there needs to be one designed by someone in visual arts to use as an assistant in visual arts, if that makes any sense what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah. I say that though, but at the same time, like I said, I haven't worked at a vendor, one of these big vendors in quite a while. So I have heard stories that I know that certain companies and studios are developing certain AI tools and testing stuff. I do know that. But I guess I should correct myself. Just not being there, I don't know how much is actually happening. But the tools that I'm seeing on the outside are certainly not designed that way. So I'm excited to see where it goes in terms of a marriage between visual effects and AI, or one boosting the other, because that's where things will, if you can have the best of both worlds, like that's where you can make the best work. Absolutely. You take advantage of it where it makes sense and help you automate certain things that don't need to be done. But at the same time, there's no question, like technology is always replacing people. There's no amount of screaming or petitioning is going to get rid of it. So the best thing to do is to stay current with technology. Like you can't work in an industry like visual effects based on technology. You can't work in any, I imagine it's not just visual effects. You can't work in technology and complain about or rail against development, because that's exactly like the tools, the way you do things today and the tools you use 2 years ago, 10 years ago, it's always changing. So you got to stay current.
Absolutely. So, looking at the future, obviously, I was looking at your website earlier. You're working on. Did I see you've got board games? Was it you've been working on?
I made a card game during COVID, basically short story. Hollywood shut.
Bad Guy Nonsense, is that right?
Bad Guy Nonsense.
Yes.
Hollywood shut down, so I'm an artist, so I saw it as an opportunity to do my own thing. So home with my kids, so we put this card game together. It was just a fun little project to pass the time, and did a Kickstarter, and it was successful, and it was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. I love that idea. There's nothing to do. Let's design a game. Oh, everyone likes this. Okay, sweet. Let's put it out there.
It was a little more than that, but we were playing games in the house, and before you knew it, we started dabbling with our own ideas. So it was fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that really, I always, while I loved working on film, and I was always working on chasing on films I wanted to see and stuff, I got into this because, like I said, I wanted to do comic books initially, because I wanted to tell my own stories and create my own characters. So doing that card game really kind of reminded me how much I love doing my own thing, and I always talked about doing my own thing. So now I'm working on my own comic book series, which I'm looking to get out there pretty soon. The Old Man, the Omnipotent. It's I started sharing quite a bit of artwork on TikTok, a little bit on Instagram, and I just started putting some. I have my landing page on my website for it, but I'll start sharing some artwork for it pretty soon here.
Well, what's the story? Or are you not telling anyone that just yet?
That'll be coming out soon, but it is a sci-fi space opera fantasy story. I'll more to come.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Yeah.
It's basically like I've told you a lot of my inspirations and stuff. So
yeah,
it's really, really colorful, bold, in the 90s comic book sense of like bold artwork and bold colors, and very, very character driven story that I'm excited to get out there.
So from your inspirations, it's a vigilante dinosaur in space. Amazing. But I suppose it must be quite nice though, working 20 years in movies and doing this sort of stuff. It must be nice to just like flex some different muscles, but still get to do what you love in art.
Yeah. I working in visual effects, you're always kind of, the tasks were always different, whether it's a stadium, whether it's a creature or a character or set extension. You're always kind of, unless you choose not to, like there was always different challenges in terms of the content and the type of work. I mean, I've worked on car commercials, I've worked on all sorts of different things that flex different muscles, as you said. But the one thing, funny, I just actually posted this, like the one out of all my passions and interests, the one thing that never kind of faded was my love for comic book art. So I worked on a lot of different comic book movies. That was a lot by choice. I was often pursuing, like, I want to get on that one, I want to get on that one. So now coming back to the actual comic book has been a lot of fun, because I'm bringing all that experience and knowledge to a comic book, where so I'm not just like doing it the traditional way, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm doing, like, for the most part, all CG, and then I'm painting on top of it and just really pushing it as hard as I can to try to make. I want to make the best visual that I can. It's taking a lot longer than it should doing it that way, but that's not the point. The point is just it's just a passion I have for my art, and in some ways it's a double-edged sword because after so many years, you know how it could be better, so you spend that much more time on it.
But it's like a full circle moment, isn't it? It's like you've come back round from when you first started loving comics to get into the movies, and now you're back doing your own comics now.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like you start working on.
So
I remember like I hadn't worked on a sequel. I had worked on so many different movies. I had opportunities to, but I always wanted to do something different. I didn't want to work on Spider-Man 2, but then I worked on a Pirates movie, and then I worked on another Pirates movie, and then before long I worked on 3 Spider-Man movies, and it was like, oh wow. And obviously there's been a bigger push. Not I have nothing against sequels. I love them as a fan, but as an artist, I wanted different challenges. So yeah, the years went by and I was just getting older and older and older, and I realized we did that card game, like I said, and it's like if I'm gonna do this, I need to do it. I don't want to be the guy that says I wish I did. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna get this done. So, but yeah, it does feel great, full circle to come back.
awesome. Love that. Just randomly, what's the most underrated VFX scene you've ever worked on?
That I've worked on?
Yeah. Underrated though, one that's like should get way more than it does.
I don't want to say anything's underrated. I think because it's kind of that duality that you talked about before. There's visual effects that you don't even know were there. So
Yeah.
I think underrated is a good thing because you don't even know we were there in the first place.
I probably worded it worse. Yeah, I think I worded it. I should have worded that way better than I did. Sorry, Mark.
No, it's all good. So when you mentioned Rock of the Ages, the first film I worked on, I thought you were going to say, because you said it was invisible, was I worked on American Hustle, and we did a bunch of shots in that are, I believe, completely invisible. Now they're not like super complicated shots, but when you see the original material, the work was definitely difficult. Like there was a hotel in New York City. I'm drawing a blank of what it was, the name of the hotel at the moment, but there's giant scaffolding on it. There's no blue screen and green screen, and the actors are just walking in front of the head and stuff, and we had to remove all the scaffolding. So I'm really proud of that work and the team that I worked with on getting that done. And Rock of Ages, very similar type stuff, but underrated. Sorry, that's a tough one.
Nah, it's all good. Just forget I said anything.
I love it when people don't know that we did anything, and that reminds me, I guess, on a lot of the Marvel stuff, especially on my first few projects there, Ragnarok and Spider-Man Far From Home, there's a lot of invisible effects in those as well. There's a lot of obvious, like that's a visual effect, and some of them don't hold up as much, but there's a lot of invisible work with those films too. You would never know. Like stitching different plates together and replacing backgrounds and stuff out that you would like in some ways shouldn't have been a visual effects in the first place, but just based on the way things fell into place, the film was better for continuity or whatever, reshoots and this and that. So there's tons of invisible effects in every film these days that people don't know. It's only when you see it that it's bad, right? That's what we were talking about.
I love that. Like I said, I've never thought of it that way. Good CGI or visual effects is stuff you can't even tell is there because it just blends in so perfectly.
The original Jurassic Park movie, I still think for the most part that holds up amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was such a like planned and thought out the way they did it. There's only, I think, 60 something visual effects shots in that. There was a lot of obviously animatronics and practical, and there's an amazing balance between the two. But it wasn't, they didn't shoot it and then figure it out. Like there was a real plan there.
Absolutely.
And some real talent, obviously, that put that together.
Absolutely. I actually think the original holds up better than the new ones, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah, so there's the answer to your question. What's the most underrated? I would have to say the original Jurassic Park film. I still think is outstanding. Some of the films from around that time, some of the first, like Apollo 13, the work Digital Domain did. I think outstanding. There's some outstanding stuff in there when you have a blend of miniatures and visual effects. When you get the best of both worlds, there's some really cool work on Dante's Peak, as I mentioned. Some good stuff.
Dante's Peak, I forgot all about that film. Bloody hell.
What's that?
Dante's Peak, I forgot all about that film. That was a great film.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I'll never forget just working in their Venice Beach location. In the parking lot, they had this giant bridge miniature that literally sat there for years and years and years, and it's just like corroding in the weather. And I would walk by it all the time, and I would think of those scenes because there's some really cool stuff.
That's amazing. Oh, Mark, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time out today. And like I said, I love learning more and gaining appreciation for this side of the work. I like to call it the unsung heroes of the movie industry because you really are. And it's absolutely amazing to learn more. Obviously, you talked about the comic. Is there any movies that you're working on at the moment that you could talk about, or are we just focusing on the comic at the moment?
At the moment, I'm focusing on the comic. Yeah. I did a little bit of work on the last Captain America film. It's called Bold and Brave, possibly. But what was that? What was it called? Sorry. Probably trimmed that part.
I liked it. I can't remember what it's called. Brave New World.
Brave New World. Yeah.
There we go. We got there eventually.
They did change the title.
Okay.
It's confused me. But yeah, no, at the moment I'm focusing on my book.
Amazing. Mr. Stevens, do you have any more questions for our wonderful guest?
I do. I've got one more for you, Mark, before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your day, which is when you first started on this journey with your love of comics, getting into art, loving what you do and that sort of thing. Did you ever think this is where you'd be today?
No, for sure. Definitely didn't. I got so caught up in what I was doing, the years flew by. It was one job after the next. Oftentimes they overlapped. So I always wanted to do my own thing. I just couldn't believe when it felt like I just stopped and looked at my watch calendar and I was like, wait a second. So I thought, and I wish I did, take a break and work on my own stuff a lot sooner. So no, it's not the direction the industry's gone. I didn't necessarily see it going this way, as well as I didn't imagine I'd work on quite so many things, for sure.
Just quickly going back to the very beginning, we mentioned about loving our t-shirts. Are you wearing a Macho Man t-shirt?
Yeah, Randy Savage, absolutely.
Yes, I love that. I literally saw the name as you sat back. I was like, oh shit.
How did I not notice that the whole
That's
time
incredible. That is incredible. Your t-shirt is also amazing.
Yes.
I grew up in the 80s, so.
Best era of wrestling. Mark, where can people find you out in the world? Plug social medias, websites, wherever it may be.
It's marcrienzo.com, MarCrienzo.com, and then all my socials are just Marc Rienzo. So I made it really easy. It's the same thing in every place. I post mostly on TikTok though, a little bit on Instagram and LinkedIn, but most stuff is on TikTok. If you really want to see what I'm doing, the book that I'm working on, find me on TikTok. I share lots of art there, different sorts of things. That's been my focus. And awesome.
Amazing. Again, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time out. It really does mean the world. It's been so much fun talking to you today.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it as well.
Glad we finally got to get it done after 3 years.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's fun.
Take care, Mark. See you later, my friend.
Thanks
Take
so
care.
much,
Bye bye.